Okay, we're on. We're here. We're with our people.
What's happening? Minus
With
one.
minus
Yeah,
one.
where's the other one?
We'll get around to him in a little bit. It's hello to the YouTube people watching the unedited version. Um, we'll knock out listener of the week right off the bat. Listener of the week. I've got to give it to this guy. I know he won once last summer, but he wants a dilly bar and he deserves a dilly bar. It's Mark Falk.
Boys earned it.
I mean, he straight up messaged me about filling out the survey
What
that
a
we
sweet
asked.
guy.
Yeah, he just straight up said "done it" or something like that, or he said "on it," and I was like, "Oh man,
Do they make
it,
dilly bars in Canada?
well,
We
we
had a
shipped them.
conversation about international shipping last year. I don't know
We
where we
shipped,
landed on it.
he'll tell us. I do have. We'll leave this stuff in for bonus content on YouTube only, though. Adam, I know you saw Asteroid City. Natalie, did you go with him?
Yeah.
Okay, I have not seen it. Feel free to weave in and out of specifics, but Asteroid City, the latest from Wes Anderson. It's got Tom Hanks, Jason Schwartzman. Oh gosh, who's not in it? Scarlett Johansson. You name it. And it seems like they're in it from what I've read. I want to hear some broad thoughts though from the both of you. Did you like it?
It's funny that you let off with Tom Hanks. This is a complete aside, but my brain kept wanting the one man who was older than the rest of the cast with gray hair to be Bill Murray.
Right, but it was
Like,
Tom Hanks, right?
even though I was looking at Tom Hanks and it was clearly Tom Hanks talking, I was like, oh, Bill Murray's in this movie. It's so ingrained in
That's
my
pretty
movie
funny.
watching DNA that I just couldn't accept that it was Tom.
Your Wes Anderson movie you're watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So did you like the movie?
I feel like Natalie and I talked on the way home from the theater, and then we checked in again yesterday, and I couldn't tell you how she feels about it, and she probably couldn't tell you how I feel about it.
All right. Well, here we
Beyond,
are.
it was okay. Where are you at today, Nat?
I maintain that it was fun and fine and pretty uh if you take it like I said this when we were leaving the theater, if you take this outside of the Wes Anderson canon, I think I would feel differently about it and perhaps better about it than I do thinking about all of his other movies.
You said something as we were riding home that I agree with. You said you like it when he just tells a story.
Yeah,
You said
instead of
something like,
because the last few, it seems like the last few of his movies, it's kind of dissected into like it's part of a story and then it pulls out and it's actually a play and it's actually a story about a play. It's too meta in all, and like French Dispatch was a little bit like that too, but it was cut up into all these different things. Like go back to just telling a single story
Mm-hmm.
because all those
That's
movies
a
are great.
yeah, I
that's a
mean,
word.
Royal
I'm sorry.
Tenenbaums is like the perfect example of that. Of it does the whole kind of closed set, uh, almost caricature kind of thing, but it's still like there's some serious emotional impact to that movie
Yeah.
that it does it by just kind of playing the storytelling angle straight instead of having to twist and turn and do all these things. I totally agree with that. That said, this may be one of the more accomplished Wes Anderson. I saw somebody on Twitter say that's such a lazy thing to say about a Wes Anderson movie at this point, but uh, like the set creation, the world building, if you can call it that, of a tiny little insulated quarantine area that has this cast of characters worked really well, and all the camera work was really good. And I found myself thinking a few times, like, wow, I wonder what's happening just off camera, as they tilt around and like clearly, what they're looking at, the other three-fourths of the action area is probably an insane amount of action to prepare for when the camera pans back. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. So it was
Uh huh.
very accomplished in that way. And even some of like the Bryan Cranston character kind of worked at times, like the whole like meta thing, but it also was a little distracting. Like there's a good early Wes Anderson film in that movie that I would have enjoyed more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. That's meta was the word I heard thrown around in uh, those snippet headlines. Excuse me, snippets of reviews. So I can see that. Um, I read a pretty detailed review. It didn't spoil. It was just rather gave a few of the points of the movie, and it sounded like a lot. It sounded like a
Yeah.
lot being thrown at you, story wise, visually. So where are you landing today? Out of I don't know. What do you want to do? 5 stars? What would you? What are you going to give it?
On a star, I would give it a flexible 3.
What's
Like I
flexible? I mean,
may I may
it
drop
could
it
go
down.
up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I may drop it
Okay.
down to 2.5, or I may bump it up to 3.5, depending.
Okay.
But there were things about the form that, like Natalie, the conversation that happens on the fire escapes is probably one of the better scenes in the film, and that doesn't happen without some of the weird setup. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, but it seemed like without that, it took that device to get it there.
Yeah, I see that totally. But I feel like you could have included that somewhere in this story if this were just a straight story.
Yeah,
Out of
that's true.
5 stars, Natalie, for you.
3.5.
Okay. What?
A solid
Nice.
3.5.
Sounded
Solid
solid.
3.5. Not a flexible 3.5.
Yeah. Okay.
No more, no less. All right. Happy 4th of July to listeners if they're with us on the 4th of July. This will be released on the 4th of July. Am I right? Is my calendar, my mental calendar
It's
correct here?
Tuesday. You're spot on.
Tuesday. Tuesday, 4th of July. Happy whatever day if you celebrate, here we are. I know we've got all sorts of listeners from around the globe. If you're listening from England, the 4th of July is no, I'm just not going to do that. It's a joke. We have an occasional British listener, I think, if I look at my stats correctly. Also, just
Do they
thanks for
get jelly
taking a.
bars?
We'll figure it out. If I knew any of them by name, I just see the stats and sometimes no. And if you're listening to us, of course, thanks for taking a break from the Juvenile Tiny Desk Concert.
We're sure it's been looping. You know,
It's
I
so
was
funny
pretty
to
over
me.
the Tiny Desk thing, like
Oh, me too.
it was cool for a long time.
Hmm.
And there's
You've
some great
played it, haven't you?
yeah, I have.
I was about to say.
Is
Easy
that,
there, Adam.
is that when it jumped the shark for you?
Probably.
I don't want any club that wants me in. I don't
That's
want to be a
exactly
part of any
right.
club.
We played it in 2016. That was
Okay,
still like a fun time. I mean, there's obviously like ones that are. I still go back and watch the Wilco ones all the time, and
sure.
there's some that are really
I
great.
thought you
But
were going to say you still go back and watch the one you did.
yeah,
I thought he was going to say that too.
I mean, I every night before bed, uh,
Yeah.
and as a pep up in the morning. No, the form was. It's just kind of like we get it, but man, that juvenile one,
It's kind of good.
it's awesome.
It's kind of and I don't mean good in a tongue in cheek. Isn't this cute? We used to dance to back that ass up all the time. That kind. I'm not saying it in any kind of ironic way.
It's just
Like
good.
it's just straight up good. The arrangement for that song is surprisingly like, whoa, he worked on this and it's kind of cool.
And he's got a stack of like incredible New Orleans musicians around him.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm. Yes, exactly. That's part of it. Anyway, so when I say you're taking a break from it, you may really be. And I legitimately watched a couple of clips. I really should just sit down and watch the whole thing. I'm not sure how many songs he does. Those are usually what, 4 songs
Three, four
long?
songs, yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of Wilco, our goal today is to unpack the back half of season 2 of The Bear. Really, we should say, speaking of REM,
Yeah.
more REM this season than last season. Anyway, The Bear. It's been on Hulu for a couple of weeks now. We have wrapped up our watching of it. We're going to take it from episodes 5 through the end. Don't listen if you haven't watched those episodes. We don't want to spoil anything for you. Just come back or skip to the next segment, which will be about Secret Invasion episode 2 if you've seen it, or just catch up and then come back. All right. I'm gonna jump in early here. I know it's only July. I'm giving this show the line of the year in television, which is, I'm not like this because I'm in Van Halen. I'm in Van Halen because I'm like this.
It's great.
That killed me. I was like, wait, did he? I paused it, backed it up, Googled it to make sure that wasn't like he wasn't quoting a book or some weird movie. Apparently that's just straight from the show,
Really?
from Richie. I think that's straight from Richie. I could not
I
find a reference.
I thought it was a quote from somebody. I mean, not that I don't know the source, but I figured I
I
picked up
assumed it
some
was.
cultural ephemera, but no.
And the funny thing is you can hear him saying it in the background at the end of the episode to someone totally different. I was like,
Right.
dude, that's so
He knew he had a
Richie.
good one.
Yeah, yeah. Which brings me to my point that I think Richie's my character of the season. Really dug watching him on screen.
Could not agree more.
Cousin,
I,
He
I
kind of
could
annoyed the shit
agree
out of me
less.
last season.
go ahead, Natalie. What'd you say?
Oh, I just said I could agree less.
Okay, he's still annoying to you, or you just have a couple of favorites beyond him?
Uh, I think that not enough has been done. Like, obviously, this is not like a redemption story for him necessarily, but it kind of was framed that way, especially during his episode. And I don't think he's done enough yet. He's not earned my respect yet. So,
Can we continue giving out superlatives and ask who your character of the season is then?
Marcus.
Good
Yeah.
choice. Solid.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sweetheart Marcus. Marcus is the kind of guy you'd hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's got to be like Marcus or Tina. Those are the top two.
Tina, you might hang out with after you got to know her in real
I
life.
wouldn't hang out with Tina. I just think she's great. And I
But
like that she calls everybody Jeffrey.
in real life, you might though. If these people were real, and you worked with Tina, after about 3 months of working with her, you might buddy up with her. But Marcus, you'd give him rides to work. You would have drink with him or a coffee with him. You would hang with him for sure. I mean, even Carm is a little too neurotic. Plus he never has time. Cousin would drive you crazy. You wouldn't hang out with him. Sydney, also a little too neurotic. She might get on your nerves a little bit at work, and you might have a little resentment after work. Might not, you know. Loved this season. Let's take it from about episode 6. I kind of have a mental layout here. Just a few things on each episode. If you want to back up or jump forward, please let me know. Episode 6, the big episode. I'm watching episode 6 in bed. A lot of my television watching is done on my iPad these days. Funnily enough, it's not the direction I would have seen myself going, but my little girl is 5 and she wants somebody to be in there with her. She really wants someone to be in there with her all night, but she definitely won't fall asleep unless you're right beside her. So I just flip my iPad open and watch something as she's falling asleep. Have my earbuds in. And I'm watching episode 6 and I'm like, okay, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into the specifics here in a minute. I'm like, how long is this episode? I hit pause and I'm like, oh, this is an hour. And it's like an hour and a minute. And of course, we're talking about the episode. It was the Christmas episode, the flashback. You knew immediately it was a flashback. Nice camera choice, nice lens choice to give you that tiny little bit of a grainy look to it. I
Hmm.
mean, as soon as it starts, of course, as soon as it starts, because the character Mikey's in the frame,
It
and
also starts by
he's
telling
been
you how
dead.
many weeks before open it is.
Yeah, 252 or something. And if you do
Yeah,
the math, that's years.
4.5, 5 years. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, Man, that episode felt like a play. Did you? And feel free to jump in here and interrupt me. I'll just rattle off a few things. I think there was so much improv going on in that episode. As far as background, it felt almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm, but way more hectic. Like it felt like here are the plot points we definitely want to have. Here are the things we absolutely has to end with the mother driving the car through the house. Has to have this, Mikey throwing forks at Uncle Lee. But in the meantime, y'all just go.
What have you read anything about that to know if
No, am
it?
I accurate? I haven't read a thing. No,
No, I don't. I don't know. I mean, I would be
I
shocked
would
if it.
guess you're not.
no, I'm probably not. Right? No,
Yeah, it
I
but
feel
seems
like with.
so.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
You
no,
gonna?
Natalie, go. Natalie, go.
Well, I was just gonna say a lot of shows that have that many characters, that much stuff going on, but do have those few plot points that have to be hit, seem improv, but most of
Hmm.
the time they are so strictly scripted because they know they have to hit certain parts. So I feel like this one was
Hmm.
so chaotic. It
Hmm.
had every single thing had to have been scripted.
Yeah, but the background noise, I guess, is what I meant. Like those,
Even
just
that, like I think
you
all
think so?
that was, yeah, I would. I mean, I don't know, but
Interesting. Episode 6 was what? What did you think? I think that's a dividing line. Most people who love the bear probably liked it a lot, and we three really liked this show. So, what did you think about episode 6? Did it add enough? Could it have been 30 minutes? What are you thinking?
I really like this show. Obviously, it's one of my favorite shows last year, and I'm sure it will be this year as well. I was not impressed by the episode. It felt a
Okay.
bit. It felt a bit like when shows now do like the "this is our tracking shot" episode or "this is our whatever" episode, and we're almost. If you are watching us on YouTube, we talked Asteroid City. We're almost getting to like the form overtakes the story a little bit on this one to me, and it just felt a bit like they thought that they had this treasure trove of information that they were going to give us. That's like this is an episode where the fans are going to say, "Finally, we get to see." We've only seen like the remnants of the family, or the family like picking up the pieces, or that kind of thing. This is the family in full flight, full chaotic flight. They're going to love it, or that's going to answer a bunch of questions or something. And it felt like I was checking my phone and kind of bored by the episode.
yeah, I think for the most part I agree with that. Um, and I don't really even think Adam and I kind of talked about this after we were watching it. It didn't really give you that insight into. I think it did justice for Natalie's character. Like I think it kind of showed a lot about why she is the way that she is. But for everybody else, it's like we kind of already get it that these are some messed up folks with a lot of trauma. So I don't think it was necessary for it to. It could have been a 30-minute episode.
Right. That's where I'm in agreement with you guys. I think it could have been about 35 or 40 minutes and it would have been just as good. But you also got the feeling that they said, goodness, we have this many great actors. We've got to just let them go. And they did. I thought the this episode was about the acting, not so much the plot. Like Adam said, you kind of knew most of this, or you could have imagined it. One thing I did think not one, a few things I think it did show me a ton, which might be important. it was so impressive to me that Carm's dynamic was very different in this episode. Like he felt like the stepped on little brother. And if you can go back to the first couple of episodes when he first busts into the restaurant, he's in charge. He's yelling, "Do this, call me chef." And he was not like that in this episode. It's like he's overshadowed and a little nervous, and baby brother. Richie is incredibly different. He seems chill and kind and, relatively normal in comparison to the rest of them. Uh, Bob Odenkirk is kind of a mean ass uncle. I like that. And here's the thing that is most impressive, or at least making me think about this episode the most. John Bernthal's playing an addict, and you never see him take anything or drink anything, or, well, he drinks a beer, but you never see him like in the bathroom staring at the mirror and with a line of Coke in front of him, like, "Oh, I'm not, can I do this?" It's just, it's almost implied, of course, but Uncle Lee calls him out. What are you on? Um, I thought it was a pretty good episode, though. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis was
Do you think
insane.
all the did you ever think all the like guest stars this season was distracting?
I can see. I think that's a valid point. I really do, and they weren't for me. I think this episode knew that, and that's why it's an hour long. So maybe, but Olivia Colman in the next episode or two was just more of a treat. It was more like, oh, she's going to be on screen for 4 minutes, and she's going to tell this amazing little story that she doesn't even finish, but she is kind of finished for you. Um, I can see that as an argument for sure.
She was the one that worked the best for me,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the family episode was just a little too much.
It
And I
was
agree, your
much.
your rundown of, like you're catching Carm when he has gone into the world and proven himself, but comes back and realizes it doesn't matter here, you
He's a
know?
low man on a totem pole.
Yeah. Uh,
And Natalie pointed out Sugar already being so vulnerable here.
right.
And you still see a little of that when when she's COO of the restaurant, but you really don't know why or see the background of it.
But Richie, I mean, he's slightly less crusty, I guess, than he was in season one about life. But he's still like wheeling and dealing and
Well, that's
lying
the
to his
moment.
then wife about the job and all of that stuff. And
Well,
you
this is
see,
probably the breaking point for him. He
yeah,
asked for the job. He doesn't get it, obviously. We know.
yeah,
And that might be the point where he becomes the shit heel.
yeah,
Epi-
possibly.
And then it brings to light more about him in episode 7, which our Natalie has pointed out is supposed to be his redemption in a way. It's Cousin's episode at the Olivia Colman restaurant. She's Chef Terry. We don't know who Chef Terry is for the longest. We find out that the young man in Copenhagen training Marcus, she's worked with him though. And the bear does this thing where it's like, we're gonna drop this piece of information, you're gonna get lost or not even think about it, and then we'll bring it up later, and your message board reading will pay off or whatever. Here it's where the young man in Copenhagen training Marcus was talking about he was the best chef ever, and I was always by his side. It turns out he was talking about Carm, which
That, that felt pretty obvious, right? At the
it felt
time.
obvious, but I just wasn't thinking when I was watching it. I was just watching him and Marcus and not really trying to unpack anything at the time. But then when you see the picture together, you think, oh, okay, that's probably who he was talking about.
Right.
What's that actor's name? I forget. he plays Adam Warlock in the new Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm forgetting his name.
I
I
just know
forget
him
as well.
from We're the Millers, and you see his
Yeah,
peep.
Yeah.
it's so funny that everyone's seen We're the Millers, but it's like,
It's because it's on
it,
TNT all the time.
who would have ever thought that that would have been a very well known movie?
Not by
Richie.
choice.
So Natalie was making an assertion that that wasn't enough to make Richie do the turn, where he comes back in episode 8 and is wearing the suit and is a little nicer and is more structured. Adam, was it for you?
This was my favorite of the personal sagas, personal
My,
journeys.
mine too.
Uh, I've maybe I don't know why. I mean, they're all sent out almost on like you know, you're gonna find courage, you're gonna find a heart, you're gonna blah blah blah. And his thing of going from bitter and disillusioned with everything to basically just learning how to give a shit was really cool. I mean, how often is that portrayed like that in TV? Not that he usually is more fantastical than that. You know what I mean? Like you see a lot of people like have the courage. Like Marcus kind of grows into like now I'm a confident chef. You know, you see a lot of those kind of hero journeys. This was redemption in such a existential, nuanced kind of way. You know, where he doesn't the purpose that he finds is just as like a cog in the wheel. You know, and he learns to take pride again and learns all these things that and a lesser show almost couldn't tell that story. Does that make sense?
Much as Mikey, John Bernthal's character, hovers as a ghost over the entire series, this episode to me had Richie's daughter never
Yeah.
really mentioned, but kind of hovering. Like when he read Every Second Counts, to me, I immediately thought, oh, he's reading that as a dad. I've got to be a better person for my kid and my ex-wife. He does make the phone call to invite her to Taylor Swift, and she refuses. What a sad moment.
It's
Who
pretty
turns
terrible.
down who turns down Taylor Swift tickets?
That
I would.
him
Well,
him
just change it barely, Natalie. Who turns down Beyonce tickets? You know, it'd be almost similar.
Who bought Beyonce tickets last
Well, I'm
night?
just saying it'd be a
It was
very.
me. I did.
It's a comparable. Um, it's a comparable situation. By the way, going way back this week, we could have said this last week, but when he tells his little girl, "Hey, Daddy loves you. I just need a break from Taylor Swift," guys, that's every dad in America. For me, my girl's getting really big into Taylor Swift right now.
yep. Then he drives home after work one night, absolutely screaming along to
Anyway,
uh, the Romeo and Juliet song.
love story.
Yeah,
See, I knew the name.
that's an old one.
Uh, it was such a sweet moment. It's sweet.
It was.
Yeah, but it's something that Natalie brought up that it's kind of a redemption, but maybe, did he earn it kind of thing? Because when I was watching the very next episode, I thought to myself, I don't know if he had enough time
Say it
to,
was 7 days.
yeah. But, I mean, maybe all he needed for everything to click was, hey, Carm and other people are pulling for you. You
Yeah.
know, we know you're a bit of a shitheel, but we want you to do great. And just because you've made a couple mistakes doesn't mean they're trying to kick you to the curb. Maybe
It
that's
was
all
also
he needed
seven
to hear.
days. Yeah, it was 7 days in like a almost boot camp kind of environment of these super long days doing menial tasks over and over again until they suddenly had value to them. I'm willing to buy that as a profound experience. Plus, this guy's probably been doing the same thing for how many years? Like any interruption in his
However
day to
many you
day.
said, 4 years, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Because he
He
was fairly,
strikes me as like one step removed from working at Patty's Pub, you know?
oh my God. Oh, he could be a Patty's Pub
Yeah,
regular.
for
Uh,
sure.
yeah.
Like you find out, much like Charlie, that he's never left Philadelphia or Chicago in this case.
In this case, yeah. Yeah, I could see it easily. But when I was watching it, I thought, yeah, maybe if I'm in the writer's room, I'm thinking one more episode before he becomes a little more dedicated or or
I feel like they should have written in a
invested.
couple more mistakes.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
that's
that
it.
the episode in between his and then the last, it's like he came out perfect. And this was clearly the most imperfect person on the show.
Mm.
Like he should have made some mistakes, and then the last episode when they needed him to step up, he steps up and accomplishes it. Sure, would have bought it,
Hmm.
but not just straight out the gate.
Yeah,
Got his shit together.
To
yeah.
me, though, I see some of the stuff that he did, like when he is doing the interviews and he turns the napkin. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
how could they not know it? Like, there was a bit of, like, yeah, that was clever, but it's also kind of overcompensation on his part of now going to such a high degree on all of this that, to me, it was played as like a person who's faking it until they make it on some of this stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
I
like
see that.
going through the motions on what they witnessed and hoping that they can rise to that over time.
And
And,
doing it big, doing it a little too big.
right, right. And
Yeah,
it'll probably settle back. That pendulum swung a long way, and it may not go all the way back to, Blaine, you keep calling him a shitheel. May not go all the way back to that, but maybe it'll settle somewhere in the middle. And
yeah.
him and Carmi did, he started at not to go all the way to the final scene, but
Right.
he started yelling at him and then he screamed, "I love you." And Carmi's yelling all these terrible things back. And
Hmm.
by the end, he's like, "I hope you freeze to death," and walks away.
And
So
he
it's
does
not
the
like,
ultimate injustice and calls him his mom,
yeah,
who's really messed up. Yeah, he calls him Donna. Yeah, we'll move on down to the last three episodes. Episode 8. One thing I wrote was that I'm so happy. This whole season, I've been very thrilled that Oliver Platt's role as Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jack, is that he's been a little bit more expanded, just so we see him at least once an episode.
mm-hmm.
He has these line deliveries that's a blend of mafia like gravitas, but at the same time whimsy and love.
Yeah,
I I think he's really good addition. And when he says to Carm, "I don't want to take the place from you, but I'll take the place from you." It's
right,
just like, damn. I felt that. Um,
yeah, that was a
um,
good moment.
Episode 8 kind of ended with a big win with the gas balloon, and I thought that was nice to do that in episode 8 rather than try to wait for episode 10 to have their big win. That would have been too much like last season when they found the money in the last 15 minutes.
I was also curious how they were going to get the narrative to a place that left another season open, but also they kept hitting all their goals.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
how do you have a successful open that opens more questions?
Hmm.
And they totally did it. And the way that they
Hmm.
paced it out for that test to be the central part of 8, and then 9 to be about prepping for open, 9 and 10 being on the same day was really good, I thought.
Hmm. You messaged me if I'd watched how many episodes I'd watched, and I was like, I went ahead and watched them all. And now you see why, because 9 and 10 are just, it's like they could have been one episode if you wanted to have
Totally.
another long. Yeah. Episode 10, let's jump right into this last one. Being trapped in a cold box is a very apt visual metaphor for Carm, right? I am trapped in a box of cold. Outside is the triumph that I have helped make, and inside is me being cold and wondering what I've done. I mean, that's just like a nice little visual metaphor of him being trapped in his own head, or trapped by grief, or, hindered by being emotionally unavailable sometimes.
And he goes right back to, he uses the definition of fun or whatever it was that they talked about early in the season.
Oh, what was it?
It's like, I don't provide entertainment
Okay.
or whatever it was. Like, he's clearly been thinking about, why am I a miserable person. How do I fit into society at large?
Hmm. Another one of my favorite moments of the entire season is the reaction of Sydney to Josh smoking crack in the alley. You know, Marcus comes and tells her the guy's smoking crack, and her reaction shot is so good. She's funny actress anyway, and an incredible writer, from what I understand. Um, and just another example of all the actors just doing amazing stuff would be Oliver Platt is only allowed like 4 seconds of reaction time to a chocolate covered banana, but it really, gave me a little heartwarming moment. And all they did was lay a banana in front of him, and he reacted to that, and it's just very good. Of course, it was built upon from episode 6, but I don't know, it's played well.
He's an Arrested Development guy. That's why that hit. Just a Bluth banana laid out there. Got to him.
Maybe. They did a cool little thing as far as the form of the show. The long shots, the long, at least seeming one shots for the smoothness of how the night's kind of going, and then the quick, choppy edits for Carm getting trapped in the freezer and things start to unravel. I thought those were nice ideas.
The sound design between front of house and back of house was also
Oh,
really nice.
yeah.
The way that you could feel that door open, both the visual and especially the audio, where it goes from this kind of like sterile chaos to front of house, where it's, there's people here having a good time. Feels good. Yet always with that sleek window between them.
That was a sleek window. Having Claire speak the voicemail rather than you just hear it from his phone, um, gives you that moment where when he drops the phone at the end of the voicemail, and it really felt like he was dropping her. You know what I mean? It was just a nice visual, rather than him, holding it and then all you do is see him hold it and then drop it. It's a switch from her speaking it to him dropping it. It was, I don't know. I just noticed tiny things like that were visually striking. I don't know. Lots of heartbreak among victory there, and I think the saddest of them all, and it was so short, but Marcus's mother probably died that night, right? Or at least something bad happened.
Sure seems that way.
Because when it said mom's nurse, it took me a full couple of seconds to think, mom's nurse, who's mom? And then I thought, oh yeah, that was the opening scene of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Get,
tough.
give me, both of you, give me your opinion on Sydney. Is she becoming a little less likable? Is that understandable? What do you think? Is she too pushy? Does she deserve to be?
I think she's doing the job that she has to do. I don't see that as
Yeah.
being pushy. I see that
Mm-hmm.
as being assertive and taking leadership in a space that needs that kind of leadership.
Mm-hmm. Does she's you can read it as being jealous of Claire. Is that
I
that's
don't at all.
you didn't? Okay. That's what I was
No.
wondering. She's definitely more likable with her dad, the character of Sydney. You know, she's more vulnerable. And
Well,
I
isn't
think,
everybody for the most part,
mm,
other than maybe the other family? But
yeah,
you're typically different around your family than you are
yeah, they
in
have
person,
a
whether that
very,
means you have to be more protective of yourself or you can be, that's your safe place.
yeah, they have a very sweet relationship with very little screen time together. I think that's great for
Right.
the show.
Them being the opposite of the Bear family.
Lord,
Uh, not both in number and in timbre of relationship is pretty interesting. I mean,
did
I guess it's
episode?
an easy writing device, but it's just the unconditional support, and he mostly cares about her well-being. Like
Oh
early
yeah,
on in the season, it's like, why don't you just, good steady job is not a bad thing. Uh,
you ever
and then
heard
he
that
gives her the
line,
Coach
Adam?
K. Huh?
You ever heard that line, Adam?
I mean, he's not wrong.
Man, the Coach K thing, we got to bring it up. That book was referenced way more than I would have imagined. Are you going to go read
Yeah.
that book now?
I mean, it was partially funny because these are decidedly not sports people for the most part. I
At
mean, I
least
bet
not
Richie,
Sydney.
right? Sydney definitely not, and don't really get the feeling that Carmi cares all that much.
Right.
Like he has like a passing knowledge, probably.
Yeah.
But for her to not only, and she like watching clips at different
At
points on her phone.
toward the end, yeah, she's watching
Yeah,
the Duke comeback that was referenced a couple times. It
she's
made me
all
want to
in.
go watch that again.
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen it since it happened.
I feel like this season was not unlike the Beatles doc, and that like you when you watch this, you can see you have been each of these people. It's in different times in your life.
Uh huh.
Yes, was she likable?
Hmm.
She's kind of the Paul of this situation. Of like, there's maybe some people resent her. Maybe she feels like a busybody or neurotic or whatever, but she's just trying to keep everything together. Like anytime that she seems to annoy Carmi, it's because he's aloof more than she's annoying, you know?
Or he's in love.
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah.
But surely it could be better handled. What are you shaking your head about that?
Yeah.
Because being in love is not an excuse to drop your responsibilities.
Yeah,
Take care of your
Here,
shit.
here. Here, here.
right. I
But
think
it
that
was,
they used this season to, Blaine, early on you said Carmi comes in, season one, here's the level of professionalism that we need. I'm in control, blah, blah, blah. They used this season to pull him closer to his brother and Richie and say, like, ultimately, you are still one of these dudes. You're not, but you still have the same potential shortcomings.
mm-hmm. The show did a good job of balancing. You could go 50-50. You could say, he's in love, he deserves it. Season one was a train wreck mentally for him because he's so focused and neurotic again. And then the other 50% could say, what Natalie just said, no, you got responsibilities. You are in
Yeah.
this job to get a star. You promised Sydney all this. You are in it money wise with Uncle Jimmy. Get this shit done. You
Get
can't.
all these people
You may
depending
not
on you.
have. You got all these people depending on you. May not have time for a relationship. You can just tell her, "Look, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm sorry."
I was gonna
Yeah.
say it doesn't have to be one or the other though. It could
That's
be
true.
both.
That's
Like,
true.
granted, we're not dealing with like a well-centered human,
Exactly.
but most people can juggle two things, and they can have a conversation and say, "Hey, I'm going to be busy for the next couple weeks.
Exactly.
Be back."
I kept wanting that conversation to happen, especially when they were standing there in his kitchen and she comes out wearing his T-shirt. I thought surely he was going to say, yeah, you may not see me for about 3 weeks and I'm sorry. I just kept thinking that would happen. But of course, he's not the kind of person to recognize that. And we wouldn't have a TV show if he did that.
But
So,
she's also a doctor, so she would get it.
oh,
Right.
yeah. She's an emergency room doctor. Exactly.
They chose that on
Very.
purpose. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
like should attract like here. Like they
Yeah.
should understand the chaos. Natalie, I almost asked you after we finished 10, but I wanted to save it for here. You, at least in our little circle, famously don't like Curb because
Oh.
you think no one would actually say all these things out loud. Like
Right.
the joke, every joke is
That's
based
funny.
on him taking it
Miscommunication.
one step too far,
Oh,
saying
yeah.
the thing in his head. Does this show not bother you too? Because all of the emotional, it's like the dramatic version of that. Like all the conflict is because they say the one thing that we all think, but then tell ourselves, you know what? I'm just not going to say that. And if I'm still mad about it in 5 minutes, maybe I'll say it then. And they just let it fly all the time.
But see, this show at least builds characters that are experienced or have experienced a lot of trauma.
Yeah, good point.
So there is at least some reason, and you are invested in that reason, and so you're kind of along the ride with them. Curb, it's just Larry David being an asshole and overreacting. And then the real problem with Curb is that you have this character who just does these terrible things, and then other people react to him in the exact same way, which is not how humans work. There's
You
not
don't
just a
think that
crowd of Larry Davids
you
responding
don't
to
think
each
Larry
other.
David is like a flawed has some trauma that made him the way that he is?
Of course there is, but that's not part of the story. There's no reason for me to care about that other than this guy just seems so entitled
Yeah,
to sharing his opinion.
he's got a little rich white privilege happening. He's Jewish, but so we the idea
It's
is there.
yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that because all of the drama of the big Christmas dinner was that everybody had to say exactly what they were thinking the whole time. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that I don't want to speak for both of you all. Natalie comes from a large Italian family, so
Mm.
or at least on one side. So maybe this wouldn't have been true if you had grown up more around them. But most just good old Southerners, we're just gonna be polite through dinner. Just get through it, you know?
Sugar would fit right in a Southern family. She
Yeah,
tamped it down. She just sat there looking worried,
yeah.
and I
You
related
just
to
say,
her so
"Man, I
much.
can't
I was
wait to get
like,
out of here,"
yeah,
instead of
yeah.
like having to declare everything.
I do want you to make some last comments on Donna, the mom, Jamie Lee Curtis. Not necessarily her performance. I think we'd all agree it was something. It was crazy, but what do you think of the character of Donna, the mom?
Natalie's laughing because I didn't like the character and I didn't really like the performance.
Oh, see, I thought she played crazy, like in a real like she played to me a version of crazy where you can't really get her hospitalized, but at the same time she probably needs to be. She's right there on that
Yeah.
precipice.
I mean, I know that these people exist, but it
Yeah,
was just kind of hard to watch.
she was also playing an alcoholic, just straight up alcoholic, which is
Yeah.
that too fits. So maybe she's not legitimately crazy, insane, but she was alcoholic 100%,
Right.
and that you can see in some households, if you know where to look. Um, no comments on Donna though. Natalie, did you find her more realistic than Adam or something?
Um, in some ways, like I've definitely seen like I'm going to overburden myself and then get really upset when nobody's helping. Like that kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
gaslighting in families that happens at the holidays.
always
Um,
at Christmas too. Yes, yes, yes.
and and I'll go back to, I think the most important thing that episode did was to show any show or movie where there is like mother-daughter trauma, I think is really effective if you are a mother or a daughter or have one of the others. Sorry
Hmm.
guys, but it's different. Like mother-daughter trauma is weird.
No, it
And I
always goes.
thought that was done well.
That
But
reminds me of
everything else
me
I think it
always
was a
doing
bit
the
much.
dad thing, dad daughter
Yeah.
thing. I always bring that up. So yeah, jump in here with this perspective of mother daughter.
I mean, it's just, I don't know that you can explain it unless you are in a mother daughter relationship. Whether you've had trauma or not, you still are aware of the potential of it.
Okay.
And it's really easy to see, like, oh, I could push that button and it could get really bad really fast, but I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're dealing with somebody who's going to, it could get really bad really fast.
That's great. Great insight. The Bear season 2. I mean, we got a nice 38 minutes out of it, or however many. Here's what we're going to do. That's going to be the end of our show this week. If you're an audio listener, if you are a YouTube video person, or if you're curious where this conversation goes, go to the Alabama Takes YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to it. And what you can do is watch the video version of this where we're going to talk about the second episode of Secret Invasion. Thanks for listening, though, if you're an audio listener in a podcast app. You are awesome. And we'll talk to you next week. So, we'll keep this in for our YouTube people. Thanks for sticking around. Secret Invasion, episode 2. I don't have a lot. That's why I just tack it. We'll just tack it on as bonus stuff. I say I don't have a lot, and then I'm looking at my notes, and I've got a lot. Uh, Second episode of Secret Invasion. What's the setup? If you watch the first episode, you're good. Uh, just don't listen to this part unless you watch the second episode, because we'll spoil some things. Adam's gonna
I know.
nod out. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll see you.
See y'all.
Okay. You want to start? You want to just say episode 2 was what?
A heck of a secret invasion.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
I have no problems with this show so far.
Really?
I mean, it's enjoyable. It's
Uh-huh.
not like making me want to like go and look into more stuff about it, but it's kind of a nice. The dogs woke me up early, so I'm gonna sit on the couch this morning and watch a show and not be bored by it.
Mm-hmm. This is the one where I had some problems. Nothing major.
What you got?
Yeah, I thought it was plotting. It was a little plotting episode. Not that I need action and punches and blasts everywhere, but it just felt plotting, and here's why. It seemed as if they wrote different set pieces in the writer's room. They sat and wrote different set pieces just because they needed Nick Fury to be in a spot that was different, to talk to someone that was different. If you ask me, this whole episode could have taken place in one room and have people come in, sit down, talk to Nick Fury, and then get up and leave, which would have been fine. It would have felt like a play. Again, another episode of TV that felt like a play. But that's other than the Olivia Colman part. That felt like it was needed and fun.
Yeah, that was good.
Dude, the cutting off the fingers, that's like a big MCU moment. Like, whoa, little dark here.
There were a couple of scenes, like when what's the guy's name? What's the bad guy's name?
Gravik.
Gravik.
Kingsley Ben-Adir is the actor.
That's right.
Gravik.
So when they went into the butcher shop to get their guy,
Yeah.
at
with the
one
guns.
point they stab somebody, and you see a splurt of blood go across the room. It's like, this is new.
It was new. And I read an interview with Samuel L. Jackson just last night. It was in Rolling Stone. And he said it's a dark series. He said that. And when I first read it, I thought, oh, come on, it's not that dark. But, now that I'm recounting episode 2, it's darker than I've seen for MCU or Disney Plus.
It's gory.
I kind of like that part, bringing a little bit more to that, because that's what would really happen. But it did still, episode 2 felt like telling and not quite showing. I'm a little forgiving of it, especially if episode 3 is going to be pretty good. We'll get a few reveals. I'll toss them out at you, and you can tell me what you think. And I'll keep it kind of MCU related and not like analytical related outside of the show kind of thing. Emilia Clarke's Gia uncovers that Gravik's using DNA from Groot and other aliens. Who are the other 2 aliens? One was a Thor villain.
Yeah.
The
I
other
don't remember
was
who the other one was.
Groot was the most recognizable one. He's going to probably use that DNA to make himself a Super Skrull, which is a comics thing. What did you think about that moment?
When it happened, granted it was like 6 a.m. when I watched this, so I don't know if I was totally awake. But it was definitely like, oh, what's like it caught my attention, and I wasn't sure what was going on, but it was exciting.
Right. It didn't take you long to figure it out, though, right? It's like,
No.
oh yeah, he's gonna, yeah, because we've seen the trailers where he's able to do things, kind of Groot-like things. So Gravik's going to turn into some sort of Super Skrull, which is a comics thing, from what I understand. Second reveal, I've got actually one more. Second would be that the Skrull have been among us for basically since Captain Marvel 90s, almost the whole time. Talos tells Nick Fury, there's a million of us here on the planet. I know Samuel L. Jackson played it for surprise and anger, but it didn't hit for me. I mean, he seemed a little naive for not realizing that could have been the case.
Yeah, it was a little. It's almost like his reaction was too, like, excited, shocked, like energetic, shocked, instead of just like, what
Yeah,
are what are you saying? You're saying all of the squirrels are here? Like,
yeah,
there wasn't enough time for it to sink in to have such a strong reaction.
yeah. He was quick to the fuck you, get off the train. Whereas I think
Yeah.
maybe if I would have written that scene, it would have been more like, wait, let me sit with this. What are we going to do? What can you help me figure this out? Because we're buddies. I don't know. But turns out, shit, they're running NATO. So it goes,
They're running
it,
everything.
it goes up. We don't know if the president of the U.S. is a Skrull, but it doesn't seem like he is unless that's going to be revealed later. It's one of those things where they can reveal anyone's a Skrull, I suppose. Speaking
Is it
of,
weird to you that all this Russia stuff is happening and this show is based on stuff happening in Russia?
a little weird. Are you implying that the guy who tried to take down Putin's a Skrull?
I'm implying that Disney might be implying it.
Yeah, I don't think they're quite that timely. They're not like South Park and getting their episodes
Right.
out. And then, speaking of anybody being a Skrull, Nick Fury's married to a Skrull
To a
lady.
scroll. That's some weird.
It was weird.
That was a little weird for me.
I saw a message
Unless
board.
he's a scroll.
Well, he could have died a long time ago.
Well, because he was a scroll in Spider-Man, wasn't he?
That's yes, briefly. Somebody was posing as him.
Yeah. So why not? Maybe it's still
Just-
that guy.
He still could be. He married the Skrull lady. She was at the beginning of the episode, and they had a little connection. He was very friendly with her. It's the same lady, and apparently he's married to her. Did you remember that he mentions he has a wife in an early MCU film? Did you recall that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think
Does he-
I think he does. Per a message board I saw, he mentions it in one of the movies, maybe a Captain America movie, but I cannot remember where. It wasn't Civil War because he wasn't in it. Anyway, he does mention I have a wife. So we didn't know it was a Skrull. I saw some message board wanting to be a little argumentative about, does he know she's a Skrull? Because when he walks in, she's human form. But he knows because it's the same lady he was talking to in the opening scene.
Yeah, that'd be weird if you didn't know. That's like some next level
Yeah. I don't
things
think
we
that's-
don't. I don't think Disney wants to talk about.
I think that she just turned into her human form because she commonly looks that way for him or something. I don't know. Of those three reveals, did they hit for you?
I mean, I think the only one that was like a shocking reveal was the last one, because the other two were just like, yeah, this is part of the story. I get it. So it wasn't a big deal. But the last one was like, what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah, she tells him put on his wedding ring. I was like,
Which
whoa.
is fine. But what?
Yeah, he doesn't wear it in public. Makes sense. He's a spy.
So then why is he so mad that all of her family is now? Is this like my in-laws are too close kind of a deal? Is that why he's mad?
His anger is now, okay, now we figure out why he's a little ticked. I don't want them here. Yeah, that felt a little too naive for a Nick Fury. He should have been more like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. We got to let's you and I hash this out. That just the tone felt wrong from. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson plays it well. And I want to bring up one more thing, Secret Invasions, and it's the line, I think, that it's going to be hit or miss for people, but when he leans down to Rhodes and he says, yeah, he delivers the big line that even when I'm out, I'm in. I think in anyone else's hands that would have been silly, but Samuel L. Jackson was like, okay, he can say that.
I mean, it was still pretty silly.
It was silly.
That's like somebody wrote that and was like, this is going to be such a badass line.
Yeah.
And then, maybe
They
not.
could have revised it a little and given Samuel L. Jackson something really intense.
Yeah.
Giving him a motherfucker or something.
Yeah.
That might have been too much that would have been too over the top. All right. I think I was a little disappointed in this episode. Natalie, not quite as much, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We might continue Secret Invasion discussion. We'll see. We're definitely going to continue watching. There are only 6 episodes total, so we'll definitely watch them. That's the end of our episode in full for our YouTube people. If you're an audio listener and you came to watch this, thanks. And we'll talk to everybody next Tuesday. See everybody later.